Let's head over to the Maester's study. We've been keeping up on some of these characters from Fire and Blood, from the Targaryen reign, and last time we were talking about Alicent Hightower and her arrival to the court there at King's Landing, and really some of the, some of the stuff, her being, she's put right in next to the old king, super close. There as he's dying. Interesting.
She's in the room when he dies.
Right. Is there? Wow. You know what? She was also in the room when Viserys died. So I think, right, or she walks in right after. What's going on here? There's a correlation. What's going on?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Alicent Hightower, the Hightowers, always in and around something, always near power, always, I think, maybe the masters of the Game of Thrones. If you look at the histories and just how they've been able to keep power, really, even though you've had houses rise and fall and stuff, they're like, yeah, we're going to stay in that upper tier for a while. We're just going to stay right there, and they're an interesting house. We'll have to do a whole kind of house study on them at some point, but Alicent is, she catches the eye of King Viserys Targaryen, who, his first wife is Aemma Arryn, who died in childbirth. The small council is then kind of urging him to wed again, and he is ignoring that advice at first. They kind of keep pushing this, and he eventually chooses Alicent Hightower as his wife, and they marry in 106 AC. Some people really felt like maybe I kind of wonder if this is an element in the show where Otto Hightower, does he do something, or does he put Viserys in a spot where he feels like he owes Otto something, or there's enough room that you could do something, have some conversation where maybe Viserys feels like he owes Otto Hightower and marries his daughter. You know what I mean? I don't know, but he definitely wanted that, and he wanted to have his grandsons or his grandchildren to become, kings. He wants to marry in. This is about as close as they get. Alicent Hightower is right there with the Targaryen king now, and so there's that. Let's see. Oh yeah. Did we talk about this? I think we touched on this last time, but the doubts and the whispers and the rumors kind of surrounding Alicent's virtue, and rumors circulating that she had maybe possibly given her maidenhead to Prince Daemon, right? I forgot about that. Yeah, that's according to Mushroom, right?
Right, and then possibly having slept with King Viserys while Queen Aemma Arryn, right, is still alive. So
wow.
And that's something that's going to be really interesting in this show is, man, what route do you go down? Do you leave a lot of things open to interpretation? Do we just flat out show them? Because so much of this history is told to us through two totally different perspectives, right? In that you have Mushroom, who's saying one thing, and you have the author of this whole thing, which is Maester Yandel, right, writing this history. What's gonna, how are they gonna decide to make these decisions?
Well, I think it's kind of a cool idea to say, let's just give some outline and structure here from our author, George R.R. Martin, and then from there, the show does make these, that's where they're going to make some of these calls, and these big reveals are going to happen. So that way, if you've read this, there's still stuff that you can, it's not like you know everything, because it would be very interesting if Alicent, like we said, she was in there with the old king when he died, and also they're very close, catching the eye of Viserys, and it just so happens then that his first wife dies, but maybe he was, she dies in childbirth, but was there more to it? Is there something else going on? Or another reason why Aemma Arryn died in childbirth is Alicent just, I don't know. That's something to look into. Or Otto Hightower involved. Who knows? They could do a lot of that kind of stuff. And that is all straight speculation. There's no necessarily backing for that in the books, but we're just kind of touching on where they could expand in the TV show. So I think pretty interesting. But another element here in this marriage early on, she is close with her stepdaughter, Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen, but it's after the birth of Alicent's first son, Prince Aemon, that, and then she goes on to have other children as well, that this tension arises between her and Princess Rhaenyra, because Princess Rhaenyra is named the heir. She is like the realm's delight. And Viserys does love his daughter very much, has kept her around. She's a cupbearer, all that good stuff. And now Alicent and Otto Hightower, they don't like that. They want to go back to this precedent that was set in 101 AC, where it should be the male heir. She may be the elder female, right? Offspring of Viserys Targaryen, but doesn't matter because now he has had a son with Alicent Hightower, and that individual should be next in line. And so that's where this gets tricky, and we start to have issues because people have already pledged their allegiance to Rhaenyra. So what do you do now, right? I mean, I think that's a problem. So
yeah, absolutely, and it's going to be something again interesting to see in the show, right? I mean, I think that's where it's going to be really these two that are going to be like our maybe Catelyn and Cersei, right? You think early in Game of Thrones, that's who they're ultimately it's gonna feel like is those are going to be really, I think, the two kind of leads of the show.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Yeah, and so that'll be that's where they have to focus things. Yeah, for sure. So another, let's move on here a little bit. This growing tension continues, and it grows to the point where I kind of feel like we're going to get a lot of Otto Hightower maybe having conversations with Viserys, talking about why his grandson should be named the heir, and sent maybe even to Dragonstone, symbolically to represent that next up in line. That's where Rhaenyra is, actually. She's away from King's Landing, and I think it's is it 5 years, the kind of their fifth anniversary of King Viserys' marriage to Queen Alicent. You have this tourney, and in 111 AC you have a great tourney that was held in their honor, and you get sort of these factions, the Greens and the Blacks. The Greens represent the Hightowers, who are kind of pushing for their claim to the throne, and you have Rhaenyra and her supporters who are wearing black, and so that's sort of the beginnings of all of this. Let's see. In the tourney itself, the Greens were defeated by the Blacks when Sir Criston Cole, wearing Rhaenyra's favor, unhorsed all of the Queen's champions, including two of her cousins and her youngest brother, Sir Gawain Hightower. So, foreshadowing, Sir Matt. I mean, is there some foreshadowing there? But then you've got Sir Criston Cole, who's such an interesting character, who is again, wearing the Queen's favor. Why is he wearing? Or I'm sorry, he's wearing Rhaenyra's favor. Defeats Queen Alicent's people, and we know that Sir Criston Cole will later on take the side of Alicent Hightower. And you're like, so because he and Rhaenyra had a falling out, we're gonna do a whole episode on Sir Criston Cole because he's fascinating. All right, and so Prince Daemon, we haven't brought him up yet. So Prince Daemon Targaryen, so Viserys' brother, he is also opposed to Alicent and her sons. After his return to King's Landing, he made fun of Alicent, Aegon, and Aemon and the other Greens to entertain Princess Rhaenyra. It is said he acted cool towards the princes Aegon and Aemon because they had pushed him even lower, or cruel, I'm sorry. He had acted cruel towards them because they pushed him even lower in the line of succession. And so that is the interesting piece. At first, and this is where I think he's going to be an interesting, character. He is calling out, or he's mocking Viserys' unborn, or the heir for a day, right? Aemma Arryn's children, and he's always doted on Rhaenyra, but I think it's because, she is, again, he thinks he could possibly marry her. There's that whole situation too, which eventually he will. And he comes back, and once he's in kind of good graces with Viserys, he is now mocking the Greens, really showing, his allegiance is, and that's a big deal. I mean, had he have sided with the Greens, it's over. Rhaenyra is sorry, but it's a big deal that the king's brother is siding, with his daughter. So, all right, let's see. When Rhaenyra turned 16, the small council started looking for a suitable husband. Alicent had her own choice: her eldest son, Prince Aegon. Now think about that. Who, while the princess was still 16 years old, he was only 6 years old himself. Viserys argued that the siblings had never gotten along, but Alicent urged her husband and said that that was all the more reason to wed the two. Viserys refused, believing that Alicent only made the suggestion to get her own blood on the throne. No kidding. War could have been averted here. That's the big deal, right? Is that it's actually probably a good idea. They both then, I mean, this happens with Targaryens, brother and sister marry, right? And they continue that bloodline, and they're, carry on that Targaryen lineage. And now House Hightower will be closely, married, grafted in there, right? So yeah, I mean, it's interesting because of how bold House Hightower was in trying to make this move. You don't really hear like House Aaron, right? Because we know Emma Aaron's daughter is Rhaenyra. So House Aaron, my friend, right? Like from the Vale, they're very closely married in with the Targaryens, and this is a chance for them to be close to power. And we don't really hear a whole lot about them. We really hear more, we will later. We will once we get into the dance. But we hear a lot about the Hightowers making this bold push. And I think had there not have been a lot of drama beforehand, and if he hadn't had to send Sir Otto Hightower away, maybe Viserys would have agreed to this and had married his son and his daughter together. That might have happened. But since there was a lot of bad blood between him and Otto Hightower, it just doesn't go that way. So yeah. Let's see a couple more things here. So we attempted that. By the time Princess Rhaenyra got married in 114 AC, Queen Alicent had found a new member for her Greens, Sir Criston Cole, as we talked about. Former companion to Princess Rhaenyra, Criston fought in the tourney for Rhaenyra's wedding with Alicent's favor and was named Alicent's personal sworn shield soon after. So how does this guy go from serving Rhaenyra to then shifting over to serve Queen Alicent? And there's, again, Mushroom, the Septon, the Maester, they'll all kind of, they got some ideas on how maybe that went down, right? Then by 115 AC, there's so much just animosity between the Greens and the Blacks that's growing deeper and deeper. Whilst Alicent had given birth to Prince Daeron, who, just like his brothers and sisters, looked unmistakably like a Targaryen, Princess Rhaenyra had given birth to Prince Jacaerys and Lucerys, who both looked nothing like either Rhaenyra or her husband, Sir Laenor Velaryon. That is a problem, my friend. Why is that a problem? There's tons of rumors that Sir Laenor Velaryon doesn't share her bed, and perhaps shares a bed with someone else, a close companion of his, and that Rhaenyra may even be sharing the bed of Sir Harwin Strong, who, and again, Otto Hightower was replaced by a Strong for Hand. Just crazy. Just absolutely crazy. But in 120 AC, Alicent's second son became involved in an incident where Rhaenyra's son, Lucerys, took out Aemon's right eye. Alicent, angered, demanded that Lucerys, that the same be done to him. After this incident, King Viserys declared that Alicent and her children would remain at court in King's Landing, whilst Rhaenyra and her family remained at Dragonstone. So he separates the two, keeps the grandkids away from each other. His children. Well, he's got grandkids intermixing with his kids. Yeah, so there's that. Rhaenyra's kids are his grandchildren. Later that year, Rhaenyra gave birth to her first son by Prince Daemon. Alicent grew wroth, learning the child had been named Aegon, believing it to be a slight against her own firstborn, who also had the name Aegon. And so that's where we'll get this Aegon the Elder, Aegon the Younger, situation, the young dragon. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he will end up becoming Aegon the Third, right? And so it's kind of weird ultimately that this big huge power struggle that goes back and forth, and then where does it ultimately end up? Well, Rainier ends up winning, kind of, it's like she doesn't, but her son. So it's really great. And I the Dance with Dragons, I think I think on television, I feel like the Blackfire Rebellions would be cooler. Just because it feels like a totally outside faction, whereas this is more like Civil War. Even though it's just because they like move over to Essos, right? But it's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be a lot of backstabbing. It's gonna be a lot of political intrigue. And for people who have no idea what happens, I still think it could be more intriguing than Game of Thrones for viewers of the show.
Well, I think you and I would be blown away if all of a sudden we found out that Alicent Hightower killed Emma Arryn. If they did that, not that they're, and again, you're like, well, where is it coming from? And that's just total, there's room for it. What I'm saying is there's a void where in which you could do something like that if you wanted to. So if they do that, would we all not be like, wait, what? Well, and then we go back to the pages and we look and we say, well, they just said she died in childbirth. And then we find out that, you know what I mean?
She's murdered in childbirth or something.
Yeah. I mean, that it's more than that,
and I'm not at all saying this is going to happen. 100% not saying this is going to happen, but keep in mind, really, because they haven't even necessarily said if this is going to be, we don't know yet, if it's 100% inline canon with the show. Like, are they just creating a show canon, right? They could change the ending of this. Because I don't know in Game of Thrones that they ever specifically say, maybe in some of the special features, but I don't think there's ever, because they'll briefly in the show, they briefly bring up the way some of this stuff goes down. But I mean, because it happened so long ago, there's nothing to say that Rainier might lose, right? And I never know. What you're saying. I'm not saying that they're going to do that at all, but I'm saying they could. I mean, heck, look what they decided to do with season 8, right? I mean, they could just be like, no, we think this is going to make better television. This is the way we're going to go.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and that's where I'm saying, kind of brace yourself for what might be them deviating from what we think. I mean, I guess when you look at the time jumps and the gaps, in this 5 years of their marriage, like how are we going to show what happened between Alicent and Viserys? What happens when Alicent first shows up? I mean, are we going to explore that? Is this someone who is sharing, as you said, actually sharing Viserys' bed and Daemon's, bed? Was there some plot to maybe take out Viserys and have Alicent be with Daemon? Like all of that. I mean, Otto Hightower, what is he doing? Is he scheming to that level? Are we actually going to, see what that looks like? And there is nothing in the text that says that that's happening, but there's enough room for it to happen, is the way I look at it. And if people want to argue that, send a freaking raven, okay? I'm all for it. I just I want to speculate about the show, and I like to think of ways in which they could take even people who have read Fire and Blood and say, guess what? We're going to turn that on its head or show you something that wasn't in the books and kind of, go from there.